The morning of August 6th, 1945, began like thousands before it. The sky above Hiroshima was clear, and people moved through the quiet routines of a standard workday. Streetcars rattled along tracks. Shopkeepers swept the dust from doorsteps. Office workers checked their watches and quickened their pace, unaware a countdown was in motion. Ordinary mornings are dangerous because they provide no reason to be afraid. When the world looks exactly as it should, your guard is naturally down. Historical catastrophes provide no warning. They arrive, altering reality before anyone has time to look up. Tsutomu Yamaguchi was a 29-year-old engineer preparing to go home. After months away on a business assignment, he was physically exhausted. He had one day left in the city. By tomorrow, he would be back in Nagasaki with his wife and young son. Walking toward the shipyard that morning, he realized he had forgotten his identification stamp. Feeling a brief flash of annoyance, Yamaguchi turned around and began walking back to retrieve it. It was a meaningless, everyday choice, the kind of small adjustment people make on autopilot every morning. This microscopic human action was about to collide with a macro event of unprecedented scale. One man's decision to retrace a few steps would determine whether he survived the most destructive force in human history. At 8:15 a.m., Yamaguchi looked into the sky. A lone American bomber drifted high above the city center. For a moment, everything was still. Then, a small, bright object detached from the aircraft. The world exploded with light. A flash brighter than the sun swallowed the sky, erasing the horizon in a fraction of a second. This brilliance was more powerful than human eyes were meant to see, turning Hiroshima into a white ocean of energy. In this millisecond, the micro-scale details of a human morning were instantly annihilated. The indifferent laws of physics had taken over the environment. In a nuclear detonation, thermal radiation outpaces kinetic sound waves. Yamaguchi felt a wall of heat hit him before hearing the blast. Moments later, the massive kinetic shockwave arrived, hurling him through the air. The sudden pressure change burst his eardrums, shifting the very atmosphere. As the force of the blast carried him, the blinding white light was suddenly replaced by absolute darkness. For those few seconds, human agency was suspended. The raw physics of the detonation now dictated whether Yamaguchi lived or died. When Yamaguchi opened his eyes, he was surrounded by an impossible silence. Above the ruins, a black river of smoke rose into the heavens. The city's macro infrastructure had been erased. Buildings were now piles of shattered timber, and roads lay buried beneath mountains of debris. Survivors wandered through the wreckage, with clothes hanging from their burned bodies, searching desperately for children, parents, and spouses. In a single instant, the weapon had erased tens of thousands of lives, proving that an entire city could now be destroyed by a single strike. Somehow, despite being burned, bleeding, and half-deaf, Tsutomu Yamaguchi was still alive. The decision to turn back for his forgotten stamp had placed him just far enough from the center of the blast to avoid instant vaporization. But surviving Hiroshima was only the beginning of his journey. Seeking safety, he boarded a train to return home to his family in Nagasaki, placing him directly in the path of a second atomic bomb just 3 days later. Yamaguchi survived that explosion as well. His story illustrates the terrifying weight of the mundane, where the decision to retrieve a forgotten object becomes the only reason a man survives the end of a world.